It's a well-known fact that Brad Pitt eats a lot in his films, from sandwiches to snacks, spoonfuls of peanut butter, and even rats.
I like to busy myself.
In the movie's subreddit, user Lundgren's front kick showed that statistically, the films in which Pitt consumes 200 or more calories of food average more money and have higher critic and audience scores than those where he eats less or nothing. But why? Well, we all need to eat, and most of us do it at least once a day. When we see a character on screen eating, it makes them look and feel more human. In other words, it makes the character easier to understand, perhaps relate to or empathize with, potentially even detest, depending on what they are eating. Food is very much a part of every person's identity. Each of us decides what we like eating and what we don't. Some choose to eliminate certain foods based on moral, ethical, or religious reasons. Others are limited in their choice of what to eat because of geography, wealth, laziness, or perhaps how proficient they are at not burning down their kitchen. In a well-written film or well-acted performance, the food that a character is eating should reflect their personality, which brings us back to Brad Pitt, whose seemingly endless feasting on screen makes a perfect case study. But before we dive in, please consider subscribing to help support this channel so we can keep making videos like this. In Brad Pitt's early career, he played a lot of teen hunks who often ate very little or nothing. For example, in The Dark Side of the Sun, Pitt's character Rick has a rare skin disease, making it dangerous for him to be exposed to light, meaning he has to wear a full leather bodysuit for most of the film. At one point, Rick's dad sits down to have dinner with his son with minimal lighting so that Rick doesn't need to wear the suit, but Rick excuses himself, saying he's not hungry. This lack of physical nourishment is linked with his lack of emotional nourishment, unable to connect with people because he is always hiding behind a mask.
Oh, you homesick?
No, just sick.
Similarly, in Across the Tracks, where Pitt plays wannabe track athlete Joe, his mother prepares breakfast for him and his brother. Joe rejects the breakfast, opting for a quick glass of water and some pills before heading off to practice. This scene shows how important becoming a successful athlete is to Joe's character.
You ruined everything! Joe, I was trying to help you.
Yeah, well, thanks for nothing.
But enough about a lack of food, let's get to the meat of it. Pun intended. In the 1993 film Kalifornia, Pitt plays a serial killer called Early, one of the actor's first instances playing an antagonist. In the film, we see Early eating some sort of dinner, Chinese takeaway in boxes, as well as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. In every case, Early's eating is messy. He consumes the food quickly, eager to finish. He talks with his mouth full and spits chunks of food out, soaking his facial hair in grease and his fingers in jam. Basically, he consumes food like he consumes people.
You say so.
Damn right I do! Shut up! Eat your food!
His victims are impulsively and carelessly disposed of, and he maintains full control over Adele, keeping her trapped in an abusive relationship.
He may punish me once in a while, but he's not mean.
From one villain to another, we go to Interview with a Vampire, where he plays, you guessed it, a vampire. Interestingly, Pitt as Louis fights his thirst for human blood after being turned. He chooses to consume animals rather than people, suggesting some humanity remains in him. Ultimately, he is persuaded by Lestat to feed on humans, but he shows much more compassion than his companion. Louis' ability to abstain from fully indulging his vampiric urges showcases his character's strong self-discipline, similar to people who fast for religious reasons, be it a far more extreme and supernatural example. A more traditional example is explored in 7 Years in Tibet, where Pitt plays real-life Austrian mountain climber Heinrich Harrer, who meets the Dalai Lama. Before this happens, however, World War II breaks out and he is taken to and later escapes from a POW camp. Desperately hungry, he steals food as well as money placed as offerings inside a temple. This food has gone off and causes him to throw up, which can be considered instant karma for disrespecting the religion and the culture around him. One of the other escapees, Peter, joins Heinrich and they head towards Tibet. frequently encountering locals that are not happy with their presence.
When the Tibetans clap hands, it means they are driving out evil forces.
A monk later explains why Tibetans are fearful of foreigners, during which Heinrich impatiently shuffles around whilst Peter listens respectfully. Throughout the film, the differing attitudes these men have are juxtaposed. At one point, Heinrich visits Peter, who has married a Tibetan woman. He's invited to eat with them, but lifts his bowl without waiting for a prayer to be said. He also visits them near the end of the film, and they drink butter tea.
Butter tea. It was never my cup of tea.
Unlike Louis the Vampire, Heinrich indulges in what he desires, irrespective of whether he is offending someone in the process. Sticking with the theme of desire, let's look at Meet Joe Black, a film in which Brad Pitt plays Death himself, who takes the form of a young man and learns what it's like to be human. This includes drinking coffee and eating human food, such as cold lamb sandwiches and peanut butter. Joe Black eating peanut butter is one of my favorite scenes in any film. The confusion, acceptance, and eventual glee that flashes across Pitt's face perfectly encapsulates the character he is playing. Like Tom Hanks in Big, who transforms from a child to an adult overnight, Joe is experiencing things for the first time.
This part I'm interested in.
This childlike behavior is also evident in Burn After Reading, where Pitt plays a ditzy gym employee who attempts to blackmail the CIA. Whilst on a stakeout, he slurps his drink to get every last drop. It's plain annoying and really makes the audience understand what type of person he is. That and his iconic dance, which he does whilst chewing gum, another typically annoying habit.
Probably.
Obviously, we need to talk about the Oceans series, especially Oceans 11, where Pitt's character Rusty Ryan is eating, drinking, and/or in the vicinity of food and drink in almost every single scene that he is in. In an interview, Pitt explains why Rusty is always eating.
He was always on the run, always on the move. I figured he could never sit down
And have a proper meal.
to have a proper meal, so he always had to grab something on the run.
This is reflected in what and how he eats his food, often choosing things he can hold in his hands, such as a cheeseburger, nachos, a lollipop, ice cream, and even a shrimp cocktail, though frankly, I'm not sure who let him take that glass outside with him.
You're right. He's right.
Ruben, you're right.
Rusty's behavior is quite similar to that of Billy Beane, the general manager of baseball team the Oakland A's, who Pitt plays in Moneyball. Billy frequently throws things, paces around, spits into paper cups, and snacks, at one point engulfing a Twinkie in 2 bites. This behavior collectively demonstrates his restless and reactive character, but it's precisely this behavior that helps him deal with the pressures of his job.
That's my bar. My bar is here.
But what happened to teen hunk Brad Pitt after he stole all of those young hearts? Well, he settled down and got married in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where he plays an assassin hired to kill his wife, who is also an assassin hired to kill him. You know, the logical escalation of a teen romance. What's fascinating about this film is how it transforms the traditional family dinner into a game of chess, where husband and wife are trying to outmaneuver one another. For example, early in the film, Mr. Smith enjoys a martini, including the cocktail stick of olives. Later, in a power move, Mrs. Smith eats her husband's precious olives. Also early in the film, husband asks wife to pass the salt. She basically refuses, saying it is in the middle of the table between them. Later, he asks again, but the salt shaker is already right in front of him. Another power move from Mrs. Smith, who wants him to know just how predictable he is. After sufficiently salting his pot roast, Mr. Smith takes a bite, and as he chews the meat, the tension is palpable, with his wife smiling suspiciously across from him. It's a masterful scene that playfully turns dinner into a dance of attrition.
You try something new?
Later in his career, Pitt starred in Allied, which features a similar dinner scene between his character, a spy, and his girlfriend, who is also a spy. However, the power play in that case is less about the food and more about sex. Another war film Pitt starred in was Fury, where he played Tank Commander Collier. The character's resolute actions help keep his team together as their mental health crumbles amid the horrors of war.
I expect all of you to pull your shit together.
To achieve this steady mind, Collier's coping mechanism appears to be creating order within the disorder, and this includes food. He raids an apartment and makes the 2 German women living there make him and the youngest member of his team a home-cooked lunch. He acts as close to a gentleman as reasonably possible in the situation, providing the eggs for the meal and giving the women 2 packets of cigarettes as a sort of payment. When the rest of the team come in and attempt to disrupt the meal, Collier fixes the things they ruin. However, at one point his calm facade breaks and he gets angry, banging the table and spitting out the mouthful of food he had before regaining his composure. It's clear from this scene how important the simple things are to Collier in creating a sense of normalcy, such as enjoying a plate of food. Before the meal, almost ceremoniously, he washes, shaves, and gets ready. And the moment he spits out the food indicates a brief break in the illusion he has created for himself. Sticking with the theme of war, in Inglorious Basterds, Pitt plays American Lieutenant Aldo Rain. Sorry, I mean the Italian stuntman Enzo Gorlomi.
Buongiorno.
Whilst waiting for Sergeant Donowitz to make a dramatic entrance and beat a man to death, Rain stuffs his face with a baguette. This is a far less profound meal compared to Collier. Rain is a practical character. He has time to kill and he's hungry. Finally, let's look at the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, where Pitt is commanding bandits instead of soldiers as Jesse James, the famous American outlaw and gang leader. Ford and James's first encounter takes place whilst James is eating a bowl of stew. As Ford tries to navigate his nervousness and asks to join the gang, James interrupts to tell him what's missing from the stew.
Dumplings?
Noodles.
As a leader, James is both asserting his dominance and showing his indifference to Ford being there. The quality of the stew is more important. Now, Brad Pitt is obviously not the only actor to eat food in a film, but he's certainly one of the most committed and convincing. We've all watched a character cut their food but never eat it. We've seen a beautiful breakfast spread be ignored. We've seen people eating things in ways that no one eats things.
Can I eat?
I don't know. Give it a try.
But Brad Pitt, well, he has us covered with his memorable method eating, which fulfills both him physically and the audience emotionally.
Say, this is some good meatloaf.
Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to see more videos, and comment with your thoughts on the topic. For more film content, feel free to follow us on Twitter, Letterboxd and TikTok. Links in the description. Otherwise, this has been Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle, and I hope you have a great day.